Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I bring you my review of the Ravenous Exotic Rifle. If you were unaware, this thing released in TU10 alongside the new Iron Horse raid, and you can get it one of two ways within that activity. One, it has a 1% drop chance from any of the 4 bosses on the first time you beat them for the week, and 2, it has a 10% chance to drop from the chest after the final boss each time you open it. Now, I've had this thing for quite a few days now, and I have to say I'm liking it quite a lot, but the two big questions I'm sure many of you are going to have are, is it better than the Classic M1A? And maybe because of that answer, is it worth the grind? Well, that's what I aim to answer today, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so let's go over what the gun has to offer. Obviously, it's a really cool looking gun. It's kind of reminiscent of the Eagle Bear with that same, this one has a rabbit's foot hanging down, the Eagle Bear had the feather. They're very cool looking, I have to admit. For raid exotic, it is pretty nice that it looks that cool. Let's go over the lore here actually, because it's pretty cool. Gary and Frecky, Hounds of Odin, roam the battlefield eternal, greedy for the corpses of those who have fallen. Go forth, warrior of Odin, and hunt, slake their thirst. So that's pretty cool. And then the talent is the same thing, Gary and Frecky. So let's explain what that is. On trigger pull, fire both barrels at once. You can see it has 2 barrels. When fired from the right shoulder, hits add offensive primers and defensive primers when fired from the left shoulder. Hits from one shoulder will detonate all of the opposite shoulder's primers when present. When detonated, each offensive primer deals 100% weapon damage, while each defensive primer grants 4% bonus armor and 10% amplified damage to armor plates for 5 seconds. Primer effectiveness is doubled at 10 stacks. And then before we demonstrate that, I just wanted to mention it comes with damage to target out of cover as its attribute, so that's a pretty nice bonus as well. So let's take a look at what that translates to for gameplay. I will set the target close here. And so you can see when I'm out of cover, there's 2 reticles there. When I go into cover, there's only 1. So it's more accurate when you're in cover than out of cover. So if we go here, so it said from the right shoulder we get offensive primers, right? So if I set this to a little bit of a higher difficulty and I fire from the right shoulder, it will put a red debuff on them, and that is the offensive primer. And so you can see the top bar, the red part, is the duration that it has left to remain on the target, and then the bottom part shows how many stacks there are. So it's out of 10 stacks, and since it fires 2 shots at once, you only need 5 shots to reach the maximum amount of stacks, whether or not you're shooting from the right or the left hand, the different primers. So you can see now that orange bar below is full, and that's maximum red primers. We swap to the other shoulder to detonate, and it blows up like that. And that's how you detonate those ones. Now for the defensive, it doesn't say this on the talent, but you can also, so you can see we build it the exact same way. The top part is the duration, bottom part is how many stacks. It's maxed out now. You can either detonate this by shooting from the opposite shoulder like with the other one. You can see I got all that bonus armor and the armor damage buff on the bottom of my HUD. But with the defensive ones, you can also build it all the way up, and if a target dies while they have any amount of defensive primers on them, it'll automatically give you that bonus just like that. So I got the bonus armor that way as well. So that's a pretty nice thing to note that it doesn't say on the talent. And so there's not much else to note for how it works other than, like the talent said, you get double the effectiveness at 10 stacks. So I could, trigger an explosion at just 1 or 2 stacks, but it's going to do not nearly as much damage as if I go all the way up and then do the explosion. It's going to give me double the amount of damage than it would have from the rest of the other stacks. Same with the defensive. I could do it at, that much, and I'll get a little bit of bonus armor, but if I do it all the way, then it's going to be all the way at, 80% bonus armor? So that's really nice. You want to make sure you try and get to maximum stacks for maximum efficiency. So now that we see how the Ravenous works and functions, how does this compare to the M1A? Well, let's test it out right here. Alright, so let's just do a straight up damage comparison between the M1A and the Ravenous right here, and then I'll talk about some of the other aspects with comparing them later on in the video. So, let's just go for straight headshots on this elite target. It takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots to the head to this elite target to take him down with the M1A. Obviously that can vary a bit. If you were to get all crits, it might go down to 5, but in general, let's say 6 shots takes him down. If we go to the Ravenous, you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get those maximum stacks, and then detonate 6 as well. So in theory, they take the same amount of shots to the head to down someone. Obviously the Ravenous, you have to swap shoulders, but in theory they do the same. If we test with body shots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shots, and with the Ravenous, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, explode. And so that, to the body, it could be more worthwhile for the Ravenous because it's going to get that explosion, and that doesn't really care whether you're shooting the head or the body. So, in theory, the Ravenous, even if you're further away and you're getting less accurate, the Ravenous could have a higher damage potential because of that non-reliance on crit. But I would wager that they are going to be better at different types of things, right? So at longer range, you are going to be able to hit body shots with this a lot easier. I can build up the stacks just like that. detonate, and I've almost taken him down just like that. But with the M1A, it's a lot easier to hit headshots at that kind of range, so you can probably get those shots in a lot better, take them down with fewer shots. Whereas the Ravenous, if I try to go for headshots out of cover especially, it's going to be a lot harder because it gives me the double reticle. I can only, there I'm hitting 1, there's 2. Whereas if you go into cover, then you get the 2. It's just something to take into consideration, that they're both pretty similar in terms of damage, but they do excel and vary at different sorts of things. So while they are roughly equal in damage output, given that you have good accuracy, the Ravenous does have an extra step or two that you have to take in order to match that damage with the explosion. But it also does have some extra potential over the M1A, and that is the explosion. It's a massive stopping power. Whenever you proc the explosion, it staggers any given target, as you may be aware with the Morozova strat, and so that alone is a big plus. But additionally, this explosive capability is a massive boost to the Ravenous's power because of its effectiveness against certain enemy types. Most notably, black tusk dogs as well as heavies from any faction get demolished by this thing. For the dogs, the explosion bypasses straight through their armor as any other explosion does. So getting full stacks of red primers and detonating them can pretty much one-shot purple dogs. Just repeat once more for a gold and you're set. And then for heavies, I found it almost more effective to just spam the explosion even if you're not necessarily at full stacks, because that'll stagger them and stop their aggressiveness momentarily, and soon enough that armor will come right off and you get the kill. It's an extremely effective and extremely worthwhile perk to consider when choosing whether or not to use the weapon. Let me play some clips here so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. The first one is a dog kill on heroic, so you can see just how fast it rips through their health, and then everything else is from a legendary run I did, so keep in mind that these are the tankiest adds in the game, and it still puts in work.
System disrupted. System restored. Assistance needed. Medical assistance needed.
So while that benefit is quite the benefit, I do want to point out one pro that I think the M1A does hold over the Ravenous, and that's handling. If you couldn't tell from the firing demonstration, the Ravenous has a unique handling mode where its shots spread horizontally, and that's obviously because it has 2 barrels. And so if you stand out of cover, you get 2 dots on your reticle, whereas in cover it's more accurate and you only have 1. But on a gun where you need to quickly swap shoulders to reacquire your target, that can be problematic. For dealing with single targets, I don't think there's much of a problem, but if you're trying to lay down fire over multiple targets, I think it's much easier for the M1A to do that quickly. It's not a huge thing, but it's something to mention nonetheless. And I will say that it took me a few days to get fully used to the handling of the Ravenous, but now I feel much more confident in taking on both longer range and close quarter targets. So definitely give the gun a few days for you to fully get the feel of it. The last topic to cover is PvP, and I'll say right off the bat that I do think this thing excels in the PvP category. Again, it took me a few days to get used to the handling and the quicker pace of PvP, but now that I have, the gun's stopping power and explosive primers are definitely a force to be reckoned with, and similarly to the dogs and heavies, the Ravenous has a very specific and powerful ability to utilize in PvP that may not be apparently obvious until you try it out, and that's against the widely popular shield skill. Let me demonstrate. Alright, so we're out in the dark zone here just to test this out quick. My friend is going to help me demonstrate, and he has a build with 3 blue cores, which is giving him a tier 3 bulwark shield, so he has, a decently tanky shield. More than what the average, Crusader half shield that a tier 0 son would have. That thing just gets demolished. But even tank builds can get messed up pretty quickly by the Ravenous. So if I tag Rogue, you can see I can shoot it, and the stacks will apply to the shield. I get it full stacks. You can see above his health bar, the shield health is still at like 90% there. Shoot it, and it's almost dead. There, and it's gone. And then I can start shooting him right away. A few shots, and he's dead too. This thing is super strong in PvP. You'll see a few clips. It just melts everything. But those shields specifically, it's very good at taking out shields like that. And it has, a lot of potency. But even beyond that very useful tactic, the gun shreds against non-shield users too. When you get full red primers on a target and detonate them, you have the potential to one-shot someone, even if they're at full armor and have blue core rolls on their build. Watch this clip to see. And I'll throw these ones in there too.
Rogue, restore hive. Detected. Nearby agent has gone rogue. Nearby agent has become rogue agent eliminated.
And that about does it, guys. Those are my thoughts and impressions on the Ravenous Exotic Rifle from the Iron Horse raid. Now, I posed the question at the beginning of the video, if I believe the gun is better than the M1A and worth the grind. Here's my conclusion. If you're someone who's already played the raid or has a team to run it with and you enjoy doing it, then yes, I think 100% it is worth grinding this one out. Similarly to the Eagle Bear in year 1, this gun is just really strong and really fun to use. I've hardly used any other build since I acquired it because it's just been a blast, no pun intended, to run it. But if you're not sold on the raid and maybe it's hard for you to find the time to do it or find a team to run it with, and most importantly, if you don't enjoy it, then no, it's probably not worth slogging through weeks of content you don't enjoy. While the Ravenous does hold some extra benefit compared to the M1A, their direct damages are relatively equal, so you're not going to find yourself in a situation where the M1A can't get the job done that a Ravenous could. That wraps up my review of the Ravenous, guys. I really hope you enjoyed and got some benefit out of the video. If so, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel with post notifications on so you never miss when I upload. Jump down to the comments and let me know all of your thoughts on the gun, what your impressions are of it, whether you have it or not, and if there's any additional questions I can answer that I may have missed in the review. That's all from me, guys. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Stay safe out there, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.